What's going on? It's the Polygon Don, and first off, apologies for the delay. I went on holiday with the family, then all of us came down with something when we returned, so put me out of action for longer than I would have liked, but I'm back now and I've got loads of games I want to talk about. First up, we've got 5 underrated PS4 games I want to show you all. There's a turn-based strategy game based on a hit Netflix TV show, a Souls-like that reimagines a seminal 80s classic, a weird and wonderful Japanese game whose genre has been described as trap action, and more, so let's not delay any further as there's lots to get through.
They called it white gold. And back in '81, it was the single most influential thing shaping the country of Colombia. For better or for worse? Well, that depends on your point of view. You see, the sheer scale of the operation made a whole lot of people a whole lot of money. We're talking more than $70 million a day at its height. And that's just what's attributed to this guy, El Patron.
Narcos: Rise of the Cartels tells the story of Pablo Escobar's rise in power and infamy during the 1980s, and the DEA agents dedicating their lives to ending his reign as the world's most famous criminal kingpin. It's a tie-in to the massively successful Netflix TV show of the same name and pretty much recounts all of the first season's main story beats. Set in Colombia in the 80s, you will strategically guide DEA agents, militia and regular cops through the country's streets or dense forests in search of drug dens and criminal hideouts, with the aim of disrupting the pipeline of Colombian marching powder that's finding its way into the US. Featuring all the same characters you may well recognise from the show, it does a good job of tying it all in actually, even if the Hollywood A-listers didn't reprise their roles here and provide voiceovers. The voice actors that were used still did a great job. Accompanied by a similar musical score and the explosive violence you'd expect, it all works well together to evoke that same feeling that the show had. In essence, it's a turn-based strategy game with a permadeath mechanic in place, meaning should one of your 5 party members be fatally wounded while on a mission, he or she is gone for good. This can be especially painful if you've already invested a lot of money and skill points into upgrading them. It's basically a slightly more shallow XCOM draped in the colourful setting of Colombia and featuring a hell of a lot more piles of the naughty sort. But while it may lack some of the depth the other games in the genre can offer, its real-world setting and historical angle do provide a genuinely unique spin that kept me coming back for more. Another string to its bow is that it also allows you to play as the cartel and even El Patron himself, expanding his criminal empire and political influence as you rewrite history in El Jefe's favour. Learning when to rest to regain health, envelop to overwhelm your enemies, or pick the right time to reload your weapons are all things that need to be very carefully considered when you're trying to complete mission objectives. It's not an easy game at the best of times, and just being aware of the permadeath mechanic was enough for me to really take my time during each mission. Turn-based games are slower paced anyway, but this really makes you slow things down and weigh up your options, so just bear that in mind if you were interested in picking this up. The main characters from the show will act as MVPs while on missions. Permadeath doesn't apply to them. Should they fall in battle, it's game over and you have to restart. But they have more health and can do more damage and come with some unique skills and abilities, like Overwatch that will enable them to shoot at enemies crossing their line of sight while it's the enemy's turn to move. But it's not just the main cast that have special abilities. Spec Ops and the other regular foot soldiers that make up your party can be enhanced through upgrades to have skills and abilities of their own. But like I said, plan your missions carefully as this game is very quick to demonstrate just how easily your favourites can be eliminated. Should you lose anyone, your overall grading on that mission will obviously be affected, but you will also need to replace them. This can be done via a hiring process that costs money that can be earned by completing main and side missions, and also by finding cash deposits out in the world. Missions vary to some degree. It's not always raiding drug factories and distribution centres. Some will have you rescuing informants, while other missions might require you to assassinate a particular individual or rescue hostages, for example. With an isometric view and realistic real-world setting, it looks pretty decent. The cutscenes can look a little dated, almost like PS3 era cutscenes. Again, it's not terrible, but it's not going to blow anyone's socks off or anything either. However, during gameplay I was still pleasantly surprised how this ended up looking and running. I never encountered any hiccups or crashes or anything like that. Also, the areas of battle are well designed and large enough that should you find yourself up against a particularly hard group of enemies, there's plenty of room to experiment and strategize in order to come out victorious. The UI is intuitive and discreet enough that it never got in the way, and overall I was really pleased with its presentation and design. If you're a fan of strategy games and haven't tried this out yet, then I think it's well worth giving it a go, even more so if you're a fan of the show. But if turn-based strategy games aren't usually your bag, there's definitely better examples out there for you to try out first, but for the price you can pick this up at, there's still a ton of fun and value to be found here.
Estoy mejorando en esta mierda.
En posición.
Described as a trap action game, Deception 4 The Nightmare Princess is an evolved version of Deception 4 Blood Ties. It includes all the content of Blood Ties, but also introduces a new quest mode, many more traps, and new playable character Valkyrie, the Nightmare Princess. You'll play as one of the Devil's daughters, either Valkyrie or Lagrina, and your main objective is to kill people for soul power. There's some twists and turns along the way that attempt to make the story a bit more intriguing than it actually is, and there's also a fair amount of fan service if that's your sort of thing, that I swear is just there to distract you from the fact that the story is just a bit, well, non-existent. The real reason to play this though is for its genuinely unique gameplay. There's a series of short missions that you are sent on in order to kill the heroes present within them. This is done by laying traps via a pull screen that overlays the battle arena with a grid, allowing you to strategically place a limited number of traps down. When you're happy with your layout, you unpause and let the action unfold, but you have to trigger them in real time. Enemies will usually make a beeline for you, so they're easy to lure, but later in the game more enemies are introduced that are a bit more cunning in that regard, so you really do need to get creative with what traps you have in your arsenal. Most arenas have a number of hazards and traps of their own that can be utilised and incorporated too. Getting to know what each trap does and how long it takes to come into effect is key to mastering this game, and chaining them together to effectively make combos will activate a score multiplier that will in turn unlock more traps. That's the loop, but once you get the hang of this and have a decent understanding of what each trap does, it gets really addictive, especially when it comes to creating a sequence of traps that basically stun-locks your enemy into a series of ridiculously slapstick but viscerally blood-soaked accidents. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. One of the traps is the classic cartoon favourite of stepping on a rake and getting smacked by the handle. That's the sort of tone it's going for here. Some traps will throw your enemy into the air, others will drop an object from the ceiling or keep them pinned to the ground, for example, and as mentioned, each level has its own hazards to incorporate as well, like spiked walls or flamethrowers, etc. There's also floor elevations to consider too, as the later stages develop more complexity, but the overall difficulty was paced really well and the early stages are forgiving enough to allow you to get accustomed to the game's strange mechanics. You can only move around in the space in an attempt to lure enemies to the traps. There's no attack buttons to utilise. Well, there's a kick that you can do, but it doesn't really damage enemies, it's mainly there for you to kick these poor unsuspecting NPCs into a trap. They can and will attack you though, and have their own traps that they can lay too, so in the later stages you'll be doing a lot of cat and mouse style running around in circles trying to get your target to stand in just the right position to kick things off. These games really don't get enough love in my opinion. It's niche and odd, I get that, but that's exactly why I love them so much. I've actually already featured Blood Ties on the channel before when discussing excellent and still cheap Vita games to consider adding to your collections, but that was about 3 years ago now, so not sure how much the price has changed since then. But when I saw the Nightmare Princess on PS4 in CEX for £12, I actually thought it was a sequel and bought it immediately. It wasn't until I brought it home that I realised it's actually a more complete version of that same Vita game that I already owned. However, if you're someone that has already played Blood Ties but not Nightmare Princess, I can assure you there is an insane amount of new content added, and with the addition of the new playable character Valkyrie, it certainly felt like a sequel, at least it did for me. So if you're in the UK and have a CEX near you, keep an eye out for this, as for £12 it's a hell of a steal.
終わるわけには。
Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is Team Ninja's interpretation of the very first Final Fantasy game released on the original NES. Ditching the game's turn-based battle mechanics, it's now a fast and fluid Souls-like that reimagines the birth of the Final Fantasy franchise. Crisp and colourful, it looks fantastic even on a base PS4. You'll play as Warrior of Light and main character Jack, while being accompanied by other companions in your quest to destroy Chaos. You'll hear that word a lot in your playthrough, trust me. With the chaos spreading and its darkness plaguing the land, Jack and his newly formed crew petition the king and his court to allow them to enter the Shrine of Chaos and destroy Chaos. Yeah, it's all a bit silly if you ask me, and became a meme goldmine when the trailer first dropped, but silly or not, it does still have a charm to it that only Final Fantasy games, and now evidently even its spin-offs, can get away with. You'll explore environments fighting off a host of familiar monsters from the franchise in real-time combat, utilising melee and magical attacks. With systems upon systems, it can feel a little daunting in the game's opening few hours. It does a fairly good job of dishing them out gradually, but there are just so many mechanics at play when it comes to combat that I did feel a little lost at first. With numerous jobs to unlock and their respective weapon classes that they fall into, there's a lot to take in. Thankfully, the first 5 or so hours of the game are tame enough that you can just naturally gravitate towards whatever feels fun, and it doesn't really push back. Yet. The first few hours allows you to experiment and explore your options, and for me it was the dual-wield blades that I rocked with the most. They didn't dish out a ton of damage, but the speed of them would usually stun-lock most of the low-level scrubs, allowing you to whittle down their break gauge, which is the main aim of pretty much every combat encounter. Break it completely and your enemy will slump to the ground, providing you with a golden opportunity to perform a gloriously satisfying and particle effect heavy finishing move. As is seemingly the case with all modern Team Ninja games released in recent years, there is a mind-boggling amount of loot to pick up. As usual, too much if you ask me, so expect to spend a large portion of your overall time with the game in menus scanning for little blue numbers. Some items of clothing have affinities with certain job roles, and matching them with the job you are currently employing will grant you additional buffs and benefits. You can juggle 2 jobs at any given time, and each one can be tailored to have its own loadout. The combat is combo based, which isn't historically my favourite approach, but it does work well here. You can unlock more moves for the characters in your party via a skill tree, which you can assign to combo links in the battle settings when resting at this game's version of a bonfire/save point. You can block by hitting R1, that can also act as a parry when timed right, and certain enemies can launch projectiles at you, such as rocks or fireballs, etc. These attack animations are usually highlighted in purple, so are easy to identify. Blocking or attempting to parry these won't work, but a well-timed press of the circle button not only negates any damage from them, but it also stores that attack in your inventory so that you can return to sender via a quick press of the square button, or save it for a fight further down the line. One of my favourite out of the many mechanics this game allows you to play around with. As mentioned, there's a lot of mechanics to wrap your head around here, and took me a fair amount of time to get to grips with. It probably didn't help that I had long gaps between gaming sessions though, which blatantly skewed my personal experience with the game. This is definitely one of those that benefits from just throwing yourself into it and playing nothing else until you complete it. Massively underrated in my opinion. I don't know why this game doesn't get the recognition and praise it deserves. I know Team Ninja's approach to Souls-like games aren't for everyone, even Souls fans, but I do think that this is the most approachable game they've made yet. So if you like what you see, don't skip this one if you see it out and about.
Losing control, and fast. Chaos wouldn't go down
so easily. Let's stamp this thing out! Ash, show me what you can do!
こうしてルフィたちは謎の島の冒険を開始する。事の起こりはその前日、ルフィたちの乗るサウザンドサニー号は謎の島へ向かい順調に航海を進めていた。
見ろよ、あの島。でけえ塔がいっぱい立ってる。空に伸びてるあの光はなんだ。よし、面白そうだ。行ってみよう。
ちょっと待ってルフィ。変な形の積乱雲がすごい速度で増えてる。
Made to commemorate One Piece's 25th anniversary, One Piece Odyssey is a beautifully crafted turn-based RPG that, while a love letter to pre-existing fans, is created in a way as to not be exclusively for them, and welcomes newcomers to the series with open and very rubbery arms. Not unfamiliar within the gaming sphere, One Piece has had many video game adaptations and iterations over the years. Most recently there's been Dynasty Warrior clones, obligatory anime-inspired arena fighters, and even open-world adventures for Luffy and his crew to journey through. But if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time they've appeared in a turn-based JRPG outside of Japan, and man was it worth the wait. With a unique story separate from the manga and anime, this feels like a lost volume, largely thanks to the fact that series creator Eiichiro Oda had direct involvement with its development and production. The game starts with Luffy and the crew setting sail on a new adventure when they suddenly find themselves shipwrecked and marooned on a mysterious island called Warford. As they collect themselves and begin to explore the island, they are soon introduced to Lim and Adio, two strange and slightly suspicious characters. Lim is able to claim the memories of anyone she touches and does so with every member of the Straw Hats. This act effectively removes all of the party's abilities, de-leveling pretty much everyone. In order to get them back, you'll have to navigate through a place called Memoria, where you'll revisit events from each member's past in order to reclaim them. And this whole mechanic is just amazing as it essentially plays out iconic scenes and adventures from the manga, temporarily letting you exist in them. And probably the best thing is that you really don't need to be a fan of the series or have any pre-existing knowledge of it to fully enjoy this game. There are cutscenes and lore exposition shown through static art stills that do a great job of filling you in on anything you might need to know, but for the most part this tells its own story. Even the Memoria mechanic of replaying scenes from old arcs to reclaim abilities helps in this regard. While a great bit of fan service for veterans of the series, it also catches up any newcomers to the events that led the Straw Hats to become what they are today. There are dungeons to explore too, which not only incorporate enemies to battle as well as bosses, but they usually have a few puzzles thrown in too. The dungeons act as gates almost, and by completing them you'll unlock more areas of the island to explore and adventure in. Exploration is enhanced further with the fact that each member of your team not only has their own special attack when in combat scenarios, but they also have their own unique exploration ability. Luffy has a gum-gum slingshot that allows him to reach otherwise inaccessible areas, and Zoro is the only member of your party that can cut through barriers, opening up new areas to explore or to discover hidden loot. No turn-based JRPG worth its weight can release these days without having some unique spin on the genre, and Odyssey is no different. Once battle is initiated, the battlefield itself is presented with all currently equipped party members and enemies spread out over a large battle arena. I was immediately struck by just how big this area can be at times, and the fact that there are clusters of engagement rather than just two rows of combatants facing each other. You might have one of your 4-member crew up against a single enemy, while another is taking on 3 enemies, and the remaining 2 might be separated from everyone altogether. When the turn is yours, you can use your action points to relocate party members, either to get a better vantage if they have range combat, or to move them closer to the action if they are melee focused. Instead of an element system, there's an impact damage system, i.e. technique for sword-based weapons, power for melee attacks, and speed for gunfire, with each party member and enemy having either affinities or weaknesses to one of these damage types. Power beats speed, speed beats technique, and technique beats power. And the UI does a great job of letting you know what works best in any given situation too, providing you've already encountered that enemy type before and beaten them. There are also skills to make use of too, at the cost of TP. The power and magnitude of these skills will determine their cost, but there are items you can use while in battle to replenish your TP bar, plus landing basic attacks incrementally fills this up also. Some of the attack animations for these moves in particular are just brilliant, and they don't shy away from being silly either, which is great and really showcases the characteristics of each member. They're just so flashy and cinematic, and with the excellent sound design you really feel their impact when they land. It just adds so much more dynamics to battle encounters. I remember feeling a really similar way when I first played Persona 5. The animations of your attacks and the cinematic camera angles and sweeps just make them feel so much more engaging and fluid that you can get really caught up in the moment and forget you're even playing a turn-based game. On top of this, there are these coordinated attacks that you can do where you attack as a party called Bond Arts. These are devastating movesets that vary depending on who you have fighting in that particular moment, and were always impressive to look at and pull off, especially against bosses. Completing battles grants you money, items and XP, which you will use to level up your crew. In fact, you can increase the amount of XP you gain from battle if you complete these non-compulsory challenges that are presented to you at the start. These can range from landing the finishing blow on an enemy from a specific party member, or completing a battle without using skills, for example. Like I said, you can just ignore these challenges and steam ahead, but by completing them you can double the amount of XP gained, which is what I did pretty much every single time. I thought this was great at first, as who wouldn't want double XP when offered? I thought maybe if I did this every time I wouldn't have to grind in the late game, but actually Odyssey is surprisingly laid back when it comes to difficulty. By the midway point I was breezing through battle encounters without any of my characters taking a lick of damage. The bosses still provided a challenge, but the majority of the everyday grunts found out in the field became a walk in the park. So that would be my one and only gripe with the game, it's just a little too easy. A bit more of a challenge to provide that sense of threat and urgency would have been nice, but that's hardly a stain on my overall enjoyment of this game. Even though this received high praise from reviewers and from those that played it, I still think the sheer size of the series' fanbase and its overall popularity, coupled with the quality of this game's end result, I genuinely thought more people would be raving about this. If you skipped this when it launched, I highly recommend rectifying that and grabbing a copy next time you see it.
私はこの国の王女よ。お前なんかに屈しない。
可愛げのねえ女だ。お前に国は救えない。
サンジ！
お！しがみつけ！ルフィ、ハリボー！アルドレール！パワーシャート！キャセドキ！
間に合った。よし、捕まってろ。
Werewolf: The Apocalypse Earthblood is a third-person action RPG from Parisian developers Cyanide. It's a little light on the RPG side of things, but it's very heavy on the action. The story and setting ties in brilliantly with its gameplay mechanics, as you'll be playing as Cartels, a member of the Fianna tribe of Irish werewolves and eco-warriors. Set in a fictionalised version of the American Northwest, where supernatural beings like vampires and werewolves secretly struggle for power, the world is ruled by three entities. The Wild, a chaotic force that creates life and oversees nature. The Weaver, which is tasked to give form to the Wild's creations, organising Earth. And the Worm, which acts as a balancing force between the Wild and the Weaver. Originally an entity of breakdown and renewal, it has since evolved to become a black hole of destruction that easily corrupts the will of humans. The game focuses on the werewolves known as the Garou, a reclusive bunch that are portrayed as the immune system of the planet. Their whole shtick is to protect nature at all costs. The numerous werewolf tribes have differing ideas on how best to achieve this, and their varying perspectives was really cool to discover over the course of the game. Your main aim is to form alliances and bonds to assist you in your fight against an oil company called Endron, whose president is actively working alongside the Worm to disrupt the balance of nature. Gameplay wise, it does a fairly decent job of letting you feel like a werewolf. In any given mission you can shapeshift between a human, a wolf and a werewolf, with each form having its own gameplay mechanics tied to them, and missions will regularly have you switching between all three in order for you to successfully complete them. Human form will allow you to interact with other humans and infiltrate their bases and strongholds undetected, as well as interacting with switches and machines, etc. While being a wolf will allow you to explore more discreetly once inside, providing opportunities to spy on and track targets. It's basically a stealth mode. And if you are detected and all hell breaks loose, you can erupt into a monstrous werewolf that towers over puny humans. And this is where the werewolf power fantasy truly shines. You are so much more devastatingly powerful than those around you, sweeping enemies across the screen with a simple swipe of your claws, or violently rampaging towards them to grab them and rip them in half. The environments you fight in all include destructible objects too, which only adds to the carnage and frenzy. Speaking of which, there's an actual frenzy mode included. There's a system in place where you'll have to manage the werewolf's rage. The more Cahal learns of the atrocities humans have caused against the planet, such as pollution and greed, the more his rage rises. When the inevitable happens and that rage reaches boiling point, the werewolf will enter a frenzied state, granting him even more power and deadly violence. However, once in this state, the only way to break out of it is to literally kill everything on screen, regardless if they're enemies or not. You'll explore various areas in the form of large hub worlds. Within these areas you'll play through missions which may have effects on the game world, including leading to even more missions getting unlocked. You'll also go to Penumbra, a place between the physical world and the spirit world, where you can receive side quests or challenges from the Great Spirit of the Waterfall, who will reward you for completing them, such as opening shortcuts between areas, etc. You'll gradually enhance Cahal via a skill tree where you can choose between different archetypes connected to different weaknesses and strengths, as well as drawing various supernatural power-ups directly from nature itself. A great AA action RPG that doesn't get enough praise. It's a little janky here and there, but wasn't enough to distract me from enjoying it through its roughly 9 to 10 hour runtime. So it's really not that long, but I do like discovering a AA action RPG that doesn't go on for longer than it needs to. Quite the rarity these days, and its physical copies in the second-hand market are cheap too, which always helps. So if you're after a short and sweet action title you can finish in a weekend, maybe pick this one up next time you see it. It might just pleasantly surprise you as it did me. And there you have it guys, 5 more underrated games from my PS4 collection. Let me know down in the comments if any of you plan on grabbing these and your thoughts if you've already played them. If you've enjoyed the video then hit the like button as it genuinely helps the channel out quite a bit, and subscribe if you're new here and like all things PlayStation. Next up there's some underrated PS3 games I want to talk about, and a video showcasing some more PS4 hidden gems will follow soon after. I'm also currently working on a much longer video that I'm looking forward to showing you guys too, so hit the bell button if you want to be notified as soon as they drop. That's going to do it for today though gang, so until next time, take care, be good, and game on.